Hello everyone, I've selected all of you here tonight because you're all lifelong baseball fans and you all have an understanding of the game. I have my own personal qualifications. I have a passion for history, I have a passion for baseball. I've been a student of the game for over 20 years. And during this presentation I use several credible sources, including newspaper, San Francisco Chronicle. I use the Hardball Times, which is a baseball magazine. I use Baseball Research Journal. I use ESPN Blog, and I use many other different statistical websites. In this speech, I will explain why Ted Williams is the greatest hitter of all time. Hitter, not base running, not overall player, not defensive player, just hitter. Why he's the greatest. To give you guys a little preview, I'm going to review the names on the ballot that you all filled out. I am going to explain the need for critical analysis and the criteria so that the greatest hitter can be judged. Then I'm going to present the criteria, then I'm going to apply the criteria and make a determination. And then I'm going to refute any claims as to opposing hitters that maybe some people think are better than Ted. So, on the list that each one of you gave me, one person put Hank Aaron, 3 people put Ted Williams, 1 person put Babe Ruth, and 1 person put Pete Rose. Which is fine. People can vote whoever they want. And so, when it comes to favorite sports figures, especially in the game of baseball, who people think the greatest hitter is, it's often a subjective opinion. You know, it's not always based on a ton of evidence and information. But what I am trying to do here is develop a serious analysis and to look throughout the history of baseball, and develop a serious way of examining why I think Ted Williams is the greatest hitter of all time. And this is true doesn't have to be just baseball. I mean, when you examine history, whether it's sculpting or sailing, you want to try and assess the greatest of something, of someone, then you want to look over the course of history. So that general concept I'm applying to the greatest hitter of all time. And so I want to set up this criteria in order for future hitters to be judged by this standard as well. So my solution, my criteria: batting average, which all of you know; on-base percentage, which all of you know; OPS, which is on-base percentage plus slugging percentage. Then now this is a newer stat called WOBA, W-O-B-A. It stands for weighted on-base average. And that is a very complex formula, which I gave each one of you a printout of it. And it basically assesses the era of the player. How good was the offense in a general era? How good was the overall hitting? So that way you can see what the statistics of a great hitter are compared to versus other hitters. So you can measure the eras more accurately. After WOBA, runs batted in, home runs, strikeouts, because strikeouts often they're always bad. You don't want to strike out. So longevity, which is measuring the player over his entire career, and intangibles. So the breakdown of the numbers of Ted Williams, that's what I'm going to do now. He hit .344, which is the 6th highest of all time and the highest of the more modern players. And he's not modern in the sense he played from 1939 to 1960, but he's still the most recent player to have hit for that high of an average. He played 17 seasons. He missed 3 full seasons during World War II. It was during his prime, ages 24, 25, 26. He missed another almost 2 full seasons during Korea. He was such a great hitter that defenses actually developed a system of defending him called the Williams shift, where they shifted the entire infield, which had never been done before. He has the highest on-base average of all time at .482. His OPS was 1.112. These are all astounding numbers, as you guys all know. His WOBA, which is the new statistic, was .331. I'll explain that later. but it's fairly low. Right around now, in modern times, it's about 327. So it's a little bit higher back then. The higher it is, the better the offensive players were at the time. RBIs, he averaged about 130, and as you guys can see, I have all the information here. So I'm talking about Ted. You can see the information that I'm saying right now. These are averaged out over his career, and the averages are based on a full season of play. So those are all the criteria, and the basic arguments that people have as far as who the greatest hitters are. I listed 10, but really you have to have 3 basic categories in order to be the greatest hitter, and they are: you need to be able to hit for average, like Ted. You need to be able to hit for power, and you need to be able to do it over a long career. So, saying those 3 things, only 5 people fall under that category: Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Albert Pujols, Ted Williams, and Josh Gibson. Of those 5 players, only Babe Ruth and Ted Williams do it over an entire career. Josh Gibson did as well, but since he played in the Negro Leagues, no one has his statistics. So maybe he was the greatest hitter of all time, and that's pretty exciting to think. Maybe he was, but we just don't know. He was called the Black Babe Ruth for a reason, because he was amazing. So when it comes down to it, like I said, it just comes down to Babe Ruth or Ted Williams. So Babe Ruth, people will say that are supporters of the Babe Ruth argument, like Bob, he hit almost the same average. He hit 342, whereas Ted Williams hit 344 over his career, as you guys can see. And even though they hit almost the same average, Babe Ruth hit for more power. But Babe Ruth, when you average it out over a full season, he hit 46 home runs on average, whereas Ted Williams hit 37. So he did hit 9 more home runs on average per year. But that's not huge like people think, because Ted missed so much time, when he was serving his country in war. So that's one argument. Another, how I would refute that in addition, is that Ted struck out 33% less than Babe. Babe struck out 86 times on average per year. Ted struck out 50, which is substantial. Ruth played on one of the greatest offenses of all time in the lineup. It was known as Murderer's Row because they were so proficient. He played with 4 Hall of Famers after the age of 30, so he was really able to continue that torrid pace of home runs and average. Not only did he play with these players, but he played with Lou Gehrig, who was one of the greatest hitters ever, and who was actually listed on the sheet of paper, and who is maybe one of the 5 greatest hitters ever. So he was hitting with this guy, which just made him get more RBI opportunities, runs scored opportunities, but also it made him see better pitches because people knew that another great hitter was on deck in Lou Gehrig. Also, the WOBA, which I mentioned earlier, for Babe Ruth was 345, which is, with Ted, it was 331. So that's a huge difference in the era that they played. The offenses were much better in the 20s and 30s. That was the golden era of offense, even more so than the steroid era of the modern 90s and early 2000s. Ted also in the 50s, during integration, about at the end of the 50s, 10% of the players in the American League were black, and that's at the tail end. It started out, 1%, 2%, but that also increased the talent level, which Babe Ruth didn't have in his era. Williams, like I said, missed those 5 seasons to serving his country. In Korea, he actually. Let me back up for a second. Williams missed those 5 seasons, and 3 of those were in his mid-20s. If you take those years away from Babe Ruth, his statistics drastically decrease, both his power and his average numbers. So that's another important factor. As I was saying, Ted in Korea, he actually flew 39 combat missions over enemy lines, and he was shot down and made a crash landing because his landing gear didn't work right. So he crash landed this plane and had only minor injuries. But so that at that age he was 34. He came back the next season at age 35, and he hit 345. The next year he hit 356. The next year he hit 345, and incredibly at age 39 he hit 388. Which is it really is mind-boggling. And this is in the late 50s when the competition was getting better and the WOBA actually even decreased further. So, I mean, in my opinion, it's true greatness. True greatness. And if that wasn't enough, and when he, in his last game as a Red Sox, well, he played on the Red Sox his entire career, but in his last game, he did something amazing, and it was so amazing that John Updike, the famous poet, wrote an essay regarding this moment, which I have right here. The poem, John Updike, you'll hear John Updike recite his own poem, I think. Okay, awesome. I don't know, that's weird, it was working.
Pause it
No, you're not, oh, it's alright, you're not supposed to. But whatever. I don't know what happened. It just worked. So annoying.
You can't pause videos. You can't pause
It's DVD, right?
No, actually, oh, because I'm pressing the wrong one. I'm an idiot. That's why.
It's the top one, huh?
I was pressing this one.
Who's saying DVD?
Yeah,
It's
so now I
VHS.
put that
It's VHS.
power on.
No problem.
That's right. Yeah, just keep it rolling, sorry.
I want me to show Eric so he can say it.
Yeah, you should show him.
This is so annoying.
What do you need to do?
I don't know.
Eric,
Is
did you
there-
want to change your answer for Pete Rose? I think you did, right?
Just for the record, he was never the best hitter on
Understand
Here we
we
go.
are a crowd of rational people. We knew that a home run cannot be produced at will. The right pitch must be perfectly met and luck must ride with the ball. 3 innings before, we had seen a brave effort fail. The air was soggy. The season was exhausted. Nevertheless, there will always lurk, around a corner, in a pocket of our knowledge of the odds, an indefensible hope. And this was one of the times which you now and then find in sports, when a density of expectation hangs in the air and plucks an event out of the future.
So his last at bat, as John Updike so eloquently spoke, he hit a home run, as if his career numbers and accomplishments weren't enough, as if fighting in 2 wars and missing the prime of his career wasn't enough. He hit a home run in his last at bat. Sadly for you baseball fans, my speech is about to end. Or maybe not so sadly. To reinstate my main points, it's essential to develop a criteria and to look over the course of history if you're analyzing any type of greatness, whether it's baseball, or sailing, or sculpting, as I said. In Ted Williams' case and in the greatest hitters' case, I assessed based on 9 criteria: batting average, on-base percentage, OPS, WOBA, RBIs, home runs, Ks, longevity, and intangibles. And although Babe Ruth comes very close, as he does, Williams is better. His hitting accomplishments set the bar for all hitters to follow. And as Ted Williams said as a young man, in quotes, "All I want out of life is that when I walk down the street, folks will say, 'There goes the greatest hitter that ever lived.'" Well, in this man's opinion, you accomplished it, Ted. Thanks for coming, guys.
We had me at hello. Don't forget, he started Jimmy Fun.
Yeah, I know, right?